Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustment public hearing for Thursday, September 22nd, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have a couple of announcements to make. If you are in possession of a cell phone or some other type of electronic paging device, I ask that you put it on silent mode at this time. Also, please note that all testimony is being tape recorded for the record. If you're going to speak, you will be asked to state your name and address for the record first, and then go ahead with your input after you've been recognized by the chair. Members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, one member at large, and one member appointed from the Planning Commission. I'm going to give a brief overview of our proceedings this evening. I will read the variance request and open the public hearing. While I'm reading your request, I would ask that the applicant or their representatives come forward and have a seat in front of the board by the microphone. The applicant and or representatives will be asked to state their name and address for the record. Environmental Services staff will provide a brief overview of the requested variance, the staff report, and if any correspondence has been received regarding the request. The applicant and or representatives will then provide any input, corrections, concerns, comments, etc. Once the applicant and or representatives have provided their testimony, the board will discuss the request and ask questions of staff or the applicant representatives. Upon completion of board questions, I will ask if there is anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request. If there is, I would ask that person to come up to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and give their testimony. When all testimony is complete, I will ask the board members for a motion to close the public hearing. Once the motion is passed to close the public hearing, there will be no further input from the audience, from the applicant, or Environmental Services staff, unless recognized by the chair, or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification. Okay. So agenda item number 1, to consider a request from Anthony and Jill Vate of Bruton, Minnesota, from section 6.9.5 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to construct a feedlot less than 700 feet from a feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. Said ordinance requires a minimum setback of 700 feet from a property line to a feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. The affected property is at the south half of the southeast quarter and southeast corner of the southwest corner of section 27, township 124, range 35, Stearns County, Minnesota. Section 27, township 124, range 035, North Folk Township. Property address 45765 Isabella Road, Bruton, Minnesota. So then applicant introductions. So are you the applicant?
Yes.
Make sure the little green light's on.
Yep, it's on.
Okay, and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jill Vate, 45765 Isabella Road, Bruton, Minnesota, 56316.
Okay, thank you. So we want to do a site visit roll call. So who on the board was able to visit the site? Bonnie?
Yes.
George?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
And I was not able to visit the site. Okay, the staff report, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, applicants requesting to construct a residential dwelling 599 feet from a registered feedlot, or feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. The required ordinance requires a 700-foot setback from a residence to a feedlot that's registered for 100 animal units or more. The Vates property is 120 acres, North Fork Township, zoned A80. The requested 599-foot setback is a 15% deviation from the required 700-foot setback. The proposed residential structure measures 32 by 51 with a 32 by 40 attached garage. Their existing home is a legal nonconformity since it existed prior to the county ordinance. The septic is located to the northwest of the current home. There's also a power line that runs on the north side of this property. And the Vates feedlot is registered as a is registered for 260 animal units. They do have a feedlot on their site. And then just some background, the Kirkhoff feedlot across the road, which is where the setback's being requested, is registered for 150 animal units and was originally registered in December of 2001. Alternatives to this request are to grant or deny the variance based on the findings of facts. Submit an application to construct a home at 700 feet from the feedlot, or submit an application to construct a home within the current home's footprint, and they could also use the one-time 24-foot encroachment. We did receive a correspondence from the neighbor, so I'll read that quick here. It reads, and this was an email I received. Hi, I am Kara Kirkhoff and my husband is Mark Kirkhoff. We are neighbors to the Vates. We are aware of where the Vates are building their new home. Jill Vate told us its location could be a problem regarding our feedlot. Mark and I do not have a problem with it. And then I did get her to state her address, which is 45802 Isabella Road, Bruton, Minnesota 56316. And that's all I have for you. Oh, and I do have, sorry, there was one mistake in the public notice. It listed that the request was for a feedlot instead of a residence, so it should have said a request for a residence to construct the 599 feet. Thank you.
Thank you. And then applicant, is there anything you'd like to stay on the record, please?
I don't think so. Do you want me to talk about like what I wrote on the application? I don't have anything to add to it, I guess, versus what's already here.
Okay, you don't have to. It is in the record.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, and then are there any, what is it? Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak on this matter? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this matter? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this matter? If not, I'm open to a motion to close the public hearing.
I'd like to ask the applicant a question. So,
I'm going to move to close the public hearing first.
oh, sorry.
Because we can ask questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, in a second.
I'll second.
All right, the public hearing is now closed. Go ahead.
Yes, so one of the alternatives cited here is to build a house on the current location. And why can't you do that?
Because we are living in the home as it's being built. So in order to build it in the current location, we would have to move out, tear down the house, and then build it, I guess. So it would involve living in our camper or finding another place to live. Well, it was built on site. So that's the reason.
Okay, thank you.
And in the end, it still would be less than 700 feet away from the neighbor's feedlot.
Correct, because our current home sits in the neighbor's feedlot. So it kind of cuts off, like through our living room and kitchen is where it goes. Correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so then we'll go to the findings of fact. So the variance requested is to construct a residential dwelling 599 feet from a feedlot registered for 100 animal units or more. Question number 1. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
I would say yes. It's an A80, and residences are allowed in the A80, and this would be as long as there's plans to remove the other residence after this one is constructed. There shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Okay. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Under Appendix A, 9.2.1 is to preserve highly valued farmland. Looking at this, the other options really for this, the only other building site that probably would be feasible would be southeast of the driveway, and that's right in the middle of a field that's currently under production. And so that would be kind of going against what we're here to promote agriculture. So I would say yes to number 2.
Thank you. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
I would say yes. In the ag goals, we would retain highly valued agricultural land and use other land for building a residence. Plus, we had the letter from the neighbor stating that, it really wasn't going to be a problem for them. And when I looked at the other neighbor's land, if they were going to expand their feedlot, it probably is going to be further to the north. And so they would be building away from this house rather than closer to the house with any feedlot expansion.
Okay, so you're under agricultural goals number 3?
Yes.
Okay. And I would like to agree with that and also say number 4 for family farm stability.
Mm-hmm.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's a yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
I would say yes. Having a home on your property is a reasonable use.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to the circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
I would say yes, because of the current location of the house that they want to locate it near there. And as I stated before, relocating it to a place that would be within or outside the 700 would take up productive farmland, and we want to avoid doing that. So it is the plight of the landowner. It is unique.
Okay, George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
I would say yes. It's a farm community, and having a home on a farm is within the character of the area.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I would say yes. Economics weren't the reason. The reason was to put it on a location that made sense to a farming operation.
I would agree, even though the applicant did say that they want to build it in a different location than their current home because they want to be able to live there. I think it's also, if they rebuilt it where their current home is, it would also still need a variance potentially. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay, so I am open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for placing a residence less than the 700 feet setback from a feedlot.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Ken?
Aye.
I am also an aye. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to agenda item number 2, to consider a request from C4D LLC Kurt Fernholtz of Sartell, Minnesota, from section 10.2.11A 1B of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to construct a residential dwelling with attached garage less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of the Mississippi River, which is classified agricultural along that segment. Said ordinance requires a structure setback of 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of a river segment that is classified as agricultural. Affected property is Lot 5, Block 1 of Mississippi Terrace, Section 21, T126N, R28W, Brockway Township. Property address 5302 400th Street, Rice, Minnesota. And are you the applicant?
Yes, I am.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Curtis Bernholz, 5302 400th Street, Rice, Minnesota, 56367.
Okay, thank you. And then a roll call from the board on if you were able to visit the site. Bonnie?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I was not able to visit the site. Okay, a staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own Lot 5, Block 1 of Mississippi Terrace in Brockway Township on the Mississippi River. Mississippi Terrace was platted in 1986. The tract contains 38,804 square feet of lot area per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2021. There is an existing 384 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed in 1948 per the Stearns County Assessor's records prior to the official controls. There is also a 240 square foot detached garage that was constructed in 1950. There is no documentation regarding the existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services that existing dwelling. The applicants have a septic design completed by a licensed septic designer. The septic design specifies locating a new subsurface sewage treatment system, septic tank and drain field that will be sized to accommodate a 5 bedrooms proposed in the new residential dwelling. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of the Mississippi River, which is classified agricultural along that segment. The Mississippi River is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. The septic design has been submitted for a 5-bedroom home. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 5.9% per the survey provided. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project will be complete will be 16.8%. An alternative to the request would be to replace the existing 384 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed prior to the official controls without expansion, or construct a dwelling that could possibly meet all the required setbacks. Brockway Township, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. I did receive 2 correspondence that came in recently. The first one is from an Alois? Alois, sounds right. My name is Alois Volk. I live at 5251 400th Street, Rice, Minnesota. I wanted to let you know I'm a neighbor of the property located at 5302 400th Street, Rice, Minnesota, and I fully support the variance for this property. I think that what the owner is proposing makes sense and will be a nice improvement. I have no reason not to trust Steve, and I see no problem with the variance. And then I have a second one. My name is Mary Kay Plumbaum. I reside at 5308 400th Street, Rice, Minnesota, 56367. I am the direct neighbor just to the west side of the lot that is requesting the variance. I have resided at my current residence for more than 31 years and love my location. In fact, I love my location so much that I am in the works to purchase the discussed lot from C4D LLC in order to build my retirement home. I have reviewed the details what C4D LLC has proposed for the home location and construction and believe their thoughts and planning fit the neighborhood and will make a beautiful improvement. As you know, the existing home that resides on the lot was built way back in the 40s, and the lot, when platted in the 1980s, was designed to fit that home's location. Hence, there are unique and unusual conditions with the lot as it sits today and with today's regulations. It should also be mentioned that the new home that is proposed will also be built further away from the waterfront than the existing structure. This will make the new home more compliant than the existing home that sits there today. I believe the new scenario will be consistent and in harmony with myself and my other neighbors, and turn what is now deteriorated structures and non-maintained yard into a beautiful new home and setting that will improve things for everyone around it. I strongly encourage you to approve this variance, as it will allow for a quality home location to be utilized whether by myself or another family. Thank you, Mary Kay Plumbon. And that is all I have for you.
Thank you. Any comment from the applicant?
Not really. I feel like we kind of stated our point in our application and in the email that we had sent out. But I guess just want to kind of drive the point home that I feel like we've kind of looked at all aspects of this to take advantage of this beautiful river lot and stay in harmony with the neighborhood. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board at this time?
I just want to make sure I'm, understanding it all properly. Then 400th Street then will be reduced. Is that right? Or some of that would be?
No.
Isn't there part of that road that's on, it says existing?
That's the neighbor's driveway. It's kind of like a shared driveway at the end of 400th Street.
Okay, so 400th Street doesn't go all the way to where it was. It
No, it ends like
further-
right there.
Oh, it
Right
ends at the
property.
property line?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thank
And
you.
currently, that driveway kind of goes like that, so we'd have to move. It'd be Al's driveway. We'd have to get moved to this location.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this application? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak about this application? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this application? If not, I'm open to closing the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. The public hearing is now closed.
Madam Chair, I just had one other question. The patio that's penciled in on this drawing, is that something that will be pervious or impervious?
I'm going to say that debatable. I mean, my take would be impervious, maybe like pavers or something, just to kind of keep the impervious. I mean, I think we can go up to 25% impervious on that lot, but I would say we'd keep it, like a paver or non-concrete if possible.
Okay, so a pervious paver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not like, I mean.
Something
yeah,
that the water can drain through.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that was my question, whether that was part of the 79 feet measurement, or if that 79 feet was to the physical foundation of the house, or if it included that patio. Maybe that's a question for staff.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the board, we would not require that to meet this setback. Okay. So the setback you have been given was specifically for the home itself.
All right, thank you.
Question for the applicant. When you purchased this in 2021, were you aware of the restrictions about the setback?
To be honest, so I work for the owner, and I don't think they were aware of it at that time. I mean, kind of speaking by my gut, what my gut is telling me, because he's pretty thorough normally, but yeah, I guess that's all I got for you on that, unfortunately, but without, signing the dotted line.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So then going to the findings of fact, so the variance requested is to construct a single-family residential dwelling with attached garage 79 feet from the OHWL of the Mississippi River, which is classified agricultural along that segment. Okay. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
I would say yes, because it's in an R1. And just a question for staff, then this would not be considered part of the scenic river?
This is not a scenic river district.
Okay,
correct?
that's what I wanted to verify. So it is R1, so residences are allowed in R1s.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no? I'm going to say that I'm a yes on this one, as the official controls is 100 feet, I believe, from the OHWL. They're at 79 feet, which is actually more of a distance than the current residence there. They are moving it as far away from the river as they really can to still have a driveway, to still have their septic tank. So I believe it is in harmony.
I'm going to say no, because, it's a small lot, and I think the size of the home, if they looked at the size of the home, possibly downsizing it would bring them more into compliance. So I'm going to say no for number two.
George?
No.
Ken?
I'm also going to say no because, yes, it is farther away, but the original house was 384 square feet running on. Here's almost 5,000 square feet running down, or over 4,000. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, so that's 3 no's and 1 yes, so number 2 is a no. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
I'd say yes to number 3 on Lakeshore Living, number 3. I'm supporting housing options that give people of all stages and economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes.
So living goals number 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Living goals number 3.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
I would say yes.
Okay, and I'm going to also say yes. So number 3 is a yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I would say yes. Having a home is in that area is a reasonable use.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'll say yes.
I will also be a yes. So number 4 is yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I would have to say this would be a no because it's created. He's building a house. If he'd have built a smaller house, he probably could have got it to fit in to be 100 feet away. And we've been trying to push when there's nothing there and you're doing it all over, try to do it the way it's supposed to be, using the setbacks and whatever. So I guess I say no.
Okay. Bonnie?
I'd say no, with also the reason that sometimes the size and the shape of a lot will dictate the size and the shape of a home that you can put there.
George?
I agree, I'm a no.
Just looking at the map and where they have the 100-foot setback, I'm also going to say a no. So number 5 is a no. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I would say yes for this one. A home in that area would maintain the character of the location.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm going to say no because a 4,000 square foot house on that property versus a 400 square foot house, I think does change the character of the locality. So I'll be a no, but that's 3 yeses, 1 no, so it's a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no? I don't believe economics were, I'm going to say yes. I don't believe they were discussed in this application. George?
Yes.
Ken?
I would say yes.
Bonnie?
I would say yes, with the caveat that I do think economics, to make a more sellable property probably was some of the reason for this, but I would not say that it's all of the reason. So I would say yes.
Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 2 nos for the 7 questions, so I'm open for a motion.
Being we have 2 no's on our findings, we're led to a motion to deny.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. George?
Yes.
I am also a yes. So I'm sorry your variance has been denied, but please speak to staff during working hours and they can help you with your application.
Okay, so I mean, it's done then. I mean, sounds like the size of the house was the main reason, obviously, but at the same token, it really, I mean, if you keep within that boundary, the house is going to be kind of it's going to be a narrow, it's going to be tough to get a house to fit on there still, I feel like. Especially we're kind of squeezed with the septic system, but I guess that's kind of why we went for this application to try to see what we could get, so.
Madam Chair, we'll work through what they just discussed tonight with you and help you on a subsequent application if that's your choice, but they really can't engage in any more conversation.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, to consider a request from Walter and Tricia Ellis of Cold Spring, Minnesota from section 10.2.11A2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to construct a residential dwelling addition and deck ahead of the established building line. Said ordinance requires a dwelling addition and deck to be located landward of the established building line. The affected property is rearrangement of Foresight Addition Lot 5 lying northernly of a line DAF beginning at northwest corner of Lot 5, Section 32, T124N, R30W, Collegeville Township. Property address 26574 Teresia Terrace Road, Cold Spring, Minnesota. And are you the applicant?
Yes.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes. Walter Ellis, 2517 24th Avenue South, St. Cloud.
Okay, thank you. And I'll do a roll call for the board members on who is able to visit. Bonnie?
Yes.
George?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
And I was not able to visit. So staff report, please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own part of Lot 5 of the rearrangement of Foresight Addition in Collegeville Township on Big Fish Lake. The rearrangement of Foresight Addition was platted in 1924. The tract contains 18,718 square feet in lot per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2006. There is an existing 1,832 square foot residential dwelling that was partly constructed in 1960 and permitted and constructed in 1998. The existing deck was constructed in 1960 per the Stearns County Assessor's records prior to the official controls. There is also a 537 square foot detached garage that was permitted and constructed in 1998. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling was permitted and constructed in 1998 as well. The system was certified compliant. Alec, actually, have you, okay. I apologize because at the time I did this, I know they were working on it, but I wasn't sure if we had gotten it yet, and I forgot to check this afternoon, so I apologize for that. The applicants are proposing to remove 359 square feet of impervious surface from their driveway and sidewalks to reduce their lot coverage below the allowed 25% because according to the existing survey, it is currently over that impervious lot coverage. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Big Fish Lake, which is classified recreational development. Big Fish is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system was found to be certified compliant. The current impervious lot coverage is 26.6% per the survey provided. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be 24.7 with the removal of the 359 square feet. And an alternative to the request would be to replace the existing deck to its existing dimensions without the home addition that was constructed because the deck was constructed prior to the official controls. Collegeville Township, Big Fish Lake Association, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. I did receive correspondence from the applicant. I don't know, Walt, if you would like me to read this, or were you going to be addressing this, or kind of up to you?
Yeah, I could go through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Probably make it a little faster.
Yeah. Other than that, that's all I have for correspondence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then any comments from the applicant?
Well, just some clarification. It should be noted that I also own the property next to it as well, so I'm my own neighbor, okay? And then for clarification for the environmental services finding, this is the third deck that I'm aware of that has been on the property. The property is heavily wooded. It's very difficult to keep moisture and so forth off of that deck. So I've been on that lake within 1,000 feet of that property for 60 years. I've owned property next to that property for just over 30 years. So this is the third deck that would there's already been 3 decks on the existing structure. Just going through what I submitted to Environmental Services, and Jamie and I have met on this and talked over the phone several times. The impervious footprint of the current deck, concrete and landscape rock does not change with the new enclosure. As a matter of fact, by our attempt to relocate the deck stairs from the east to the south, we not only decrease our footprint, but also reduce the distance the existing deck measures from the lake. In other words, it reduces the existing setback of the previous grandfathered deck from the lake. It's understood through the state that we can rebuild the deck exactly to the square footage that it is, which would mean that we could build it as close to the lake as it is currently, and we're proposing that, in fact, we change the stairs and more in harmony with the ordinance, stay away from the lake. And that's one of the concessions that we've had, and I think it's a practical one. There's a large tree that has become much larger in the last 30 years in front of that deck, and I think having the walkway out to it or disturbing the root structure and so forth would be problematic. We live on a bluff. That bluff is maintained by prairie restorations. We have a large wild prairie program on our bluff. We filter everything that comes off of that lot through that area. We spend a lot of money on maintaining that. We will be doing a burn this summer. So our lot is unique in that there's a variety of things. We can't build a 150 square foot structure next to the lake for life jackets and things like that because we've got a bluff. We can't have a large deck area down near the lake because we live on a hill or a bluff, okay? So the property is unique in that way. We're not changing our footprint in any way, shape, or form. The concrete and landscaping that's there is associated with footings and so forth. The original landowner had always intended to build an enclosure underneath the deck. The impervious surface is only 2% over, but I realize you have to draw the line someplace, but we've not changed that since we've bought the property many years ago. This is all, we've inherited the impervious structure being 2% over what the county now allows, so it's nothing that we have added to. In fact, we're so passionate about trying to make that property easier because we are considerably away from the lake if you consider the fact that we've got to go down a lot of stairs to get to the lake. We don't have our property isn't flat, it isn't going right to the lake, and we don't have, I mean, we're seeing many structures going up on the lake, right on the lake. They're called boathouses, they're called pump houses or whatnot. We can't do any of that. Everything that we have done at the lake has to come up, and this enclosure would allow us to do that. Our current basically basement is primarily utility area and so forth. By putting a structure underneath the deck, not only would that allow us to better mitigate drainage, but it would also help preserve the deck as well because since the 3 decks have been on, there is now all sorts of options with waterproof decking and things like that, but you still have to have wooden posts to keep the deck up and so forth. And with the number of trees, we have over 200 trees within our 4-lot area there, most of which in the shore impact zone, things don't dry out. And so having an enclosure underneath would help us create a roof system below the existing deck also. When we bought the property, we decommissioned a lot of the drainage that was coming from the roof going right into the lake. In fact, none of that occurs anymore because we wanted to make sure, because we're on a hill, that everything appropriately filtered. Our current property in question, also to follow perhaps not specifics of this meeting, our 4 properties and roughly 6 buildings between those properties are all 100% energy efficient. We run all our electricity off of a grid tied wind turbine. I mean, so we've tried to do everything we can to meet not only just goals of the county but our own goals of trying to preserve the integrity of the lake and runoff and things of that nature. If granted, this would be the first time since the construction of this current building over 50 years, I believe it's closer to 60, that this would be the first time that there would be a structure that meets the goal, hopefully, of the county and environmental services by removing the stairs, taking it from east to south, and for the first time in 60 years, we'd actually create a structure that is not as close to the lake as it is right now by approximately 15 feet.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from board members to staff or the applicant? Okay, then I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this variance? Yeah, please come up to the testimony. Make sure the little green light's on. All right, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Richard Indereden, 26602 Teresa Terrace Road. I go by Richmond, Minnesota. My address is, I don't know the zip code actually. So I am the neighbor to the north, right there. And Walt brought this to my attention. and asked me if I would come tonight to state my opinion because I did not have time to do an email. And I did look at, from my deck, looking out to Walt's proposed deck, because right now there is a structure there, a deck that's been there since we bought the property. And what I've envisioned is I cannot see anything that would jeopardize our view of the lake from if I would be sitting in our home, from his new proposal of his deck. Because his deck's always been there. It's been in very rough shape. We've noticed that over the years. And so it just, to me, seems like what Walt wants to do, and Teresa, his wife, would be something that would be less of an eyesore to us, because it is very old, and I think you guys visited the property. The deck is very, very weak and very old. So as a neighbor, the closest one to this proposed construction, I really think that it'd be nice to be approved. So it would just look nicer, and plus it'd benefit, I think, not only Walt, but it'd benefit us by having a more visible and more aesthetically looking structure.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else from the audience wish to speak to this application? Would anybody else in the audience wish to speak to this application? Anyone at all? Okay, I'm open to a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. So the public hearing is now closed. We can move on to the findings of fact. So the variance request is to construct a 14-foot by 58-foot square foot residential dwelling addition and deck ahead of the established building line. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I would say yes, it is. Having a home and a deck is allowed in that zone.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no? I'm going to say yes, in that the established building line, I've seen a few applications for variances in the past where, because the shoreline is curved, and me looking at the map, it looks like it is definitely a curve where this applicant's lot is compared to the other lots. It does kind of seem like it's a bit of a, point or a peninsula. So I'm going to say yes, because it's hard to have an established building line, in my opinion, when you do have a curving shoreline. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
All right. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, and under Lakeshore Living Policies, number two, they've talked about, maintaining the, in their report, they talked about maintaining the drainage system that they currently have, and that they've tried to improve that, over the years. Lakeshore Living number 5, if we talk about we'll discuss if there's any mitigation or stormwater management that we want to do. And Lakeshore Living number 8. It maintains the character of the neighborhood and probably will improve something that's right now kind of falling apart or in disrepair.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes, and also for the Lakeshore Living Policies number 8, where the project preserves sight lines and does not negatively impact view sheds of adjacent properties, as we have the adjacent property owner who says that the sight lines will not be impinged upon. Okay, so that's a yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
I would say yes. His plan is actually going to reduce impervious surface. And his explanation of why they needed to add an enclosed area kind of makes sense to me, that it's, it preserves a way to preserve the deck at a, longer than it's currently been preserved.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, because I think this deck is currently there, and it's been there for, in some state being replaced, but it's been there for over 60 years. And so to replace it in the position that it's currently at, I think is not the plight of the landowner, but due where it was previously positioned.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'll also be a yes, because it's the circumstances unique to the property. As he stated, it's really hard to have it dry. It sounds like it's a very wet atmosphere, which would increase the need to have to replace the deck. So I'm also going to be a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
I would say yes, that you're replacing a deck. It's maintains the character of the home and like it is right now.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I think the major reason was to improve the livability of the home rather than economics. So I would say yes.
George?
Yes.
Ken? I'm also a yes. Okay, with all answers in the affirmative, I'm open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request, but we should discuss if there is any mitigation that we feel we need to do.
I guess they have already a no-mow zone down by the property, and all of their water off their roof goes into underground, into holding tanks and whatever. So I guess I don't think anything more would have to be done. They aren't going to create any more than has been in the past.
The staff does have recommended condition that the proposed impervious surface be removed and verified to reflect compliance with the 25% lot coverage.
Right, and they're going to do that. So that will have to be
And
part
I
of.
will make that part of the motion to include that the pervious surface needs to be removed. And the reason I brought up the mitigation was just so that in the record it shows that we did discuss that. And then do we need a financial guarantee on the removal of the impervious surface? Okay, staff is indicating no.
Okay. So you're moving to approve the variance with the condition that they have to be down to 25% lot coverage for impervious removed and verified by certificate of survey?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I will second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. So the motion has passed. So the variance is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, to consider an after-the-fact request from Gary and Stephanie Keiss, Cold Spring, Minnesota, from section 6.2.1G and 10.2.11A2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to leave as constructed a water-oriented accessory structure less than 10 feet to the principal residential building on the lot. Also to construct a screen porch and deck ahead of the established building line. Said ordinance requires an accessory structure to be located 10 feet from a residential building and requires a screen porch and deck to be constructed landward of the established building line. The affected property is part of Lot 12 of Fairway Shores, beginning at northwest corner Lot 12, then southwesterly through a point on the lake shore, Section 20, T123N R30W, Wakefield Township. Property address 17591, Flint Court, Cold Spring, Minnesota. And the applicant, if you'd like to state your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Keese, 17591 Flint Court, Cold Spring.
Okay, thank you. And then a roll call to see who was able to visit the site. Bonnie?
Yes.
George?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
And I was not able to visit the site. The staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own part of Lot 12 of Fairway Shores in Wakefield Township on Schneider Lake. Fairway Shores was platted in 1961. The tract contains 16,019 square feet in lot area per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is zoned R1. The applicants purchased the property in 2013. There's an existing 1,830 square foot residential dwelling with a 405 square foot deck that was permitted and constructed in 1983. In 2007, previous owners applied for and were granted a permit to construct a water-oriented accessory structure. Sometime between 2018 and 2021, the permitted structure was relocated or a new structure was placed in the current location near the residential dwelling. The location of the current structure does not meet the required setback to the residential dwelling. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the property was permitted and installed in 1999. The system was certified compliant in 2022. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Schneider Lake, which is classified recreational development. Schneider is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish. The subsurface sewage treatment system on the property was certified compliant in 2022. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 24.7%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will not change because the existing area that's proposed is currently impervious. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. I did receive two correspondence. The first one is from David and Shirley DiBurrito, 17616 Flint Court, Cold Spring, Minnesota. On behalf of our neighbors Gary and Stephanie Keese, 17591 Flint Court, Cold Spring, Minnesota, we would appreciate them to be allowed to construct a screen porch and deck on their property. We have no objections to this project in any way. Thank you for your consideration on this project. And the second one is from Steve and Vicky DiBurrito at 17435 Fairway Circle, Cold Spring, Minnesota. It says Dear Wakefield Township, but it's obviously the Board of Adjustment. We are neighbors of Gary and Stephanie Keese, and we fully support their request for all their deck and patio improvements to their home. Thank you. And that is all that I have.
Thank you. And then, applicant, is there anything you'd like to say further on this topic?
I'll point out a few things that were in our application. The way the back of our home is set up currently, we don't have any kind of gutter system or anything like that. So as proposed, we're actually improving the stormwater runoff from what it stands, the way it stands today. I guess we will be putting in a gutter system, which then will, filter into some kind of basin. Yep, okay. Uh, okay. 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 So it would run into some kind of a basin and then kind of release the water slowly. So the stormwater runoff would, I guess, it'd be an improved situation from where it stands today after the new piece is constructed there. And then I also stated, you know, as you can kind of see it from the pictures, that this area kind of has unique lots. They're pretty tight lots. There's not a whole lot of area to put something like a shed on your property. And I guess if we were to move it, I do think it could impede on some of the views and different things from our neighbors. You can see the home, you know, I guess just to the right of our house there is kind of set back further. You know, so if we were to have to bring our shed out or put it anywhere else in our backyard there, it would kind of impede on their views out into the lake and into our bay. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have a question from staff. And I know this is prior to the current owner owning it, but I just want some history on this property. This house then was built in 1983. Was there a variance at that time, or weren't the other houses there that the building line wasn't established, or? Because I'm looking at the building line here.
It's almost ridiculous.
It's in the middle of the house.
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
build behind
Right.
the building
Right.
line?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm fairly sure there was a variance at that time. I'm pretty sure it should be.
I think they just built according to the lay of the land, and the land
Right.
just kind of goes around in a circle.
And trying to build between the other two houses, if they existed at the time. It just, you know, the last application that we had, and this one, I see a difference between them is the last application, the building line was, the only thing that was over the building line was the deck. This is, you know, to me, it looks like half the houses, you know. But as you say, how do you establish a building line? I still have questions about how we establish building lines on a curved area of a lake.
And this deck is in about the same condition the last one was. It's not in, doesn't look like you use it very much anymore because it's unusable.
Yeah,
Unsafe.
this year we actually kept pretty much everybody off of it because there's a lot of rotting going on it.
We didn't walk on it because it didn't look safe.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the board, to answer Member Mossman's question, there was a variance that was granted for this, and we didn't have it as a separate document like we normally do, so that's why I didn't catch it and
Okay.
put that in the staff report. But it was actually on the construction site permit. There was a little area where it says variance, and so
Okay.
there was a variance to
All right.
build that existing structure.
Thank you.
I have a question for staff. The requirement that shed or whatever we call it is 10 feet, has to be 10 feet. What's the significance of 10 feet versus 5 feet versus 6 feet?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the board, the 10-foot is actually like a fire code. I don't know that if the house catches on fire, the shed's probably going to catch on fire anyways. But that being said, that's the reason for the 10-foot setback is for fire protection.
And so when did that requirement come into being?
Was that in 2000? Was that part of the original?
Right, that was in 2000 when the county adopted zoning and we had shoreline zoning, but this structure was post 2000, correct? When
Yeah.
was it placed on the property?
The structure was originally placed in 2007, it looks like, by a permit, but in that permit, it was placed down in this location down here is where they were proposing it. That's why it was considered a water oriented, so it could go as close as 10 feet to the lake. It had to be 10 feet from property lines, and that's where it was originally permitted. And then sometime, when we look at our aerial photos, sometime between, 2018 and 21, it was moved to this current location here. Now, you guys were the property owners, I believe, at that time, so maybe you can speak on behalf of where Was it a new structure or was it that existing structure that they?
Yeah, it was a new shed that we had placed there, yep.
So what happened to the old one?
It actually, the old shed was not there when we moved and purchased the property.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I do want to mention that, so the size of that structure today does not require a permit. If they wanted to do it today, they could, but it would have to meet all the setbacks. So it would have to be 10 feet from the dwelling, 10 feet from property lines, and at least 10 feet from the lake. So at this point, it wouldn't require him to apply for a permit for it. It just has to meet those setbacks. Thus the reason it's being brought in front of you today.
Unless we give him a variance to leave it where it is.
Unless you give him a variance, yes. And you'll have to go through after the fact findings because it's already in that location.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think when that 10-foot setback was set, one of the reasons for the 10-foot setback was so that I think emergency vehicle, thinking that if it were on the side of the house, so that emergency vehicles had space to get through, where, that isn't an issue here, but the fire code, it being too close, that probably is an issue, but.
Depending on what's stored in that shed, it could be like small hot engine put in there. It could start the shed on fire, which would spread to the house, things like that.
Yeah, but whether it's 5 feet away or 10 feet away, if it's going to start on fire, it's probably going to start the house on fire, even if it's 10 feet.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing. Would anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this application? Anyone at all? All right, so I'm open to a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, so we have two findings of fact. We have the after the fact findings for the shed and then the findings of fact for the screen porch. Which ones would you guys like to do first? Any preference? Okay. So let's start with the after the fact findings, which is the variance to leave as constructed 120 square foot water oriented accessory structure 5 feet from the principal residential building on the lot. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
It's R1 and it also is on Lake Shore, and a water orientated structure is permitted.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control?
I'm going to say yes, because although it doesn't meet the 10-foot setback, one of the goals is also to alleviate conflict with neighboring properties. And by placing it closer to the water, it may impede the sight view of a neighbor. And so I think placing it closer to the residential structure would make sense there.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm going to be a no, because I think the general purposes and intent of the official control is for that fire protection, and by having that shed as close to the building as it is, I don't think it fits with that purpose. But with 3 yeses, that is a yes. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan?
I would say yes. Lakeshore Living Policies, number 8. It says to evaluate lakeshore housing projects using the following guidelines, and it's to protect and preserve sight lines that does not negatively impact view sheds of the adjacent properties.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'll also be a yes. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control?
I'm going to say yes, because I think having a water-orientated building in this area makes sense because of the topography and the layout of the lot. He probably is not going to be able to put any other kind of storage unit there, and so this makes sense.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'll also be a yes. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner?
I'm going to say yes, based on what was mentioned before. Locating that structure closer to the shoreline would impede neighbors' views.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I will also say yes. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
I would say yes, because nothing's going to change. It is how it's been for the last 2-3 years, and the neighbors won't know that anything changed. He'll just have a variance to have the shed where it is.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Ken? Or sorry, George?
Yes.
I'll also be a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I'm going to say yes. I think it involved more the location of the building rather than economics.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And I'll also be a yes. So it looks like we have 7 affirmative, so I'm open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll move to leave as constructed the 120 square foot water-oriented structure within 5 feet of the residential building.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that one is approved. We can move on to the findings of fact. For the variance requested to construct a 20-foot by 12-foot screen porch and an 11-foot by 10-foot deck ahead of the established building line. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
And before we do that, one question just occurred to me. Then this screen deck then requires an additional structure of a roof? Is that correct? Okay. It's not tucked in underneath, it's on top of the deck, right? Okay. Thank you. I just wanted that clarification.
Correct.
I'm going to say yes, the proposed use is allowed because they want to build a porch and a deck on a building in a residential area. That is allowed in that zone. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no? I will say yes on this one because the thing we are having a variance against is having it ahead of the established building line. And right now, the established building line goes right through the house. The house next door is at the point of a lake, so it's very hard to determine it's easy to determine an established building line, but it doesn't necessarily make sense with the orientation of the homes and the shoreline. So I'm going to say it is in harmony to the best that it really can be. George?
I'm a yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, with a caveat that they are planning on doing some shoreline protection by mitigating the rainwater. So yes, in relationship to lakeshore living in number 2. Number 5. Number 6. And 8A and B. Or not, nope, that would have been, 8 would have been with the building. So just 2, 5, and 6.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And I'll also be a yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
I would say so. He has a deck, but the deck is unusable in the present state, so he intends to put a new deck up so he can use it. And they're going to screen it in, and I can understand that when you live on a little corner of a body like that, the mosquito population there has to be terrible down in that area. So I'd want a screened-in porch also. So I'm a yes there.
Bonnie?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
I'll also be a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Yes or no?
I would say yes. It's a kind of a strange lot where the orientation of the house, there isn't a lot of places you can put things, and the line going like through the house is problematic. So I'm a yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
And I'll say yes because there's, looking at the property, there probably isn't room to put any additional storage areas, and so the screened-in deck may, also accommodate them more living space in order to accommodate the lack of storage.
Okay. And I'll also be a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
I don't believe it's going to change the locality in the neighborhood, so I'll say yes.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
I don't think economics were part of this discussion, so I'll say yes.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So we've got 7 yeses. I'm open for a motion. I do want to call attention to, we did have the soil and water conservation recommendations. It sounds like the applicant, they included a management plan that they are proposing. I think that it makes sense to do the financial guarantee, especially as they are building something. Like, we're not making them just put money in a thing for not mowing. I think it makes sense to have the financial guarantee in order to ensure that those mitigations are done.
And Madam Chair, if we could maybe specify those mitigations, because on here it's what they proposed, and they've said, well, this is what we've started to do, so that we can be specific on what we're requiring.
Okay, yep. And looking at the mitigation suggestions, it sounds like number 2 is restoring and maintaining a no-mow native plant barrier, which is one of the options that the applicant did state they wanted to do. So I am 100% okay with that part. I don't know.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
On that note, I would note, however, we need you to discuss the width because the applicant's proposal is much different than what Soil and Water is recommending.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like in the picture they have it. The area that they're currently using is maybe just that first top corner on the mitigation plan suggestion. So if we look at, that one, look at that layout map. So is that area where the hand is right now, is that where it's currently not being mowed in that top corner?
Correct. Yep. That side is not being mowed. The other side, there is a section that is mowed. A part of that though is grown up. I don't have a picture, I don't think it was a picture that was included there. So there are areas along, I guess, the northern side and the south side that are not mowed. You can kind of see it actually if you go back to the picture before that. It's in the back, like just left of the shed, far back there. You can kind of see the corner of the lot. That part, there's an area that's not mowed as well, and it has those taller grasses and things like that that are over there. It's very hard to see with that picture, so I don't know if you're going to get much out of it, but and I don't know if it's worth clarifying. I know that the recommendation from the Soil and Water Conservation, they're talking about the existing roof lines and gutters today direct everything towards the lake, which is true, but we don't have a gutter system on the backside of our house today. We are proposing to put a new gutter system on the backside of the house, so anything coming off the roof will go through the gutter system and then down into these basins, versus everything running straight, to the lake.
Question for applicant, Madam Chair. Then would the gutter system for the remainder of the house that's currently there, would that also be directed into the barrel system?
So there's a gutter system on the front of our house that runs. You're not going to have pictures of it here either, I don't think. Well, so this is the back of the home, which today has no gutters at all. So we're proposing to have there will be gutters along the whole back side of the house, including the new screened-in area.
There. Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. I don't know if I don't see anything. I'm colorblind, I'm sorry. I can't see it. I can't at all. Sorry. So the front of the house does have a gutter system today. On the south side there where you were, there's a gutter system. The downspout runs there, and honestly, all the runoff goes to kind of our front of our yard. And then on the other side, it does run off to the side of the home. Yep, up over there is how it is today.
So the tough part that I see is I don't know how big those green areas are that they're suggesting that the buffer area is. They do mention it has to be a minimum of 25 feet landward of the lake, but it doesn't necessarily say the width or length of it. Does that make sense?
We have adjusted those in the past. There was one place up by Avon where, the guy, he said they don't have to be 25 feet. We made them like 10 feet wide or whatever, the no-mow areas. But I agree, this here, he has a small area, but he needs to have a little bit bigger area right down by the water.
Jamie's working on getting you an estimate of what the green is proposed as, and yes, you can obviously adjust that too.
Right, isn't that what you told us on I don't remember what the lake was, but it doesn't necessarily have to be 25 feet.
And something we've done on other ones too was the length of the shoreline that was no mow, we've done just so many square feet, or not so many square feet, so many running feet, and then the applicant could decide where those running feet would be. You know, maybe it's not on that part that's on the lower portion, maybe it's, you know, half of that, you know, half of that wide, or if we do, you know, a number of feet, they can determine
And if he's
where it
taking all
is.
the water off of the house and running it into an underground system already, that eliminates quite a bit of the water, so then he's just getting rid of what would be coming naturally across the lawn right now.
Madam Chair, is it an underground system, or are you proposing the rain barrels?
The rain barrels are what we're proposing, which
Okay.
would be like a slow release, I guess, of the
Okay.
water versus
They're like,
something
they're in the
underground.
ground, right? Or are they above the
I
ground?
think these would sit above ground,
Okay.
yep, and then they would, again, it's like a slow release of the rainwater.
My question to those always is, if you get a 4-inch rainfall off of a roof like that, how much does a 50-gallon barrel won't hold that much?
You go open them up, and then you have to open them up, otherwise it's gonna end up backing up.
Yeah.
So,
I do want to state too, though, they are currently under the maximum impervious amount. They're at 24.7. And the thing that they are asking a variance from is just the building, the established building line, not how close anything is to the body of water. So that makes me lean back a little bit on what kind of things we might have to require of the applicant, just because they are already underneath the maximum impervious, and the thing they're doing a variance against is just the building line.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I believe you had a question with regards to the distances here. When I scaled it out, this one is approximately 25 feet, and this one is approximately 50 feet, and then he's going back 25 feet is what he was saying. So again, that's your guys' choice. You know, if you're leaning that direction, you guys can decide, you know, the width and the length totally. It's totally guys up to you guys if you want to add that.
My suggestion is if we do this buffer, I think 25 feet in is a hardship on this lot. The lot is so small.
That's excessive.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
I think 10 feet would be sufficient.
The way Jill is saying, you know, we really don't have to give them much of anything, right? That's the way you're saying, because they're not over the impervious level. So if they did what they're suggesting to do,
The hard part is if they do what they suggest to do, but how much of the onus are we putting on the county to enforce what they suggested to do if they change their mind? You know, unless we put it in the variance.
we have to put it in the variance.
Yep.
That has to.
And I think we'd need to put we need a quantitative to say so many feet inward and a minimum of so much length, so that it can be measured and evaluated rather than, you know, somebody just guessing. So if we were to go with 10 feet, and right now what's proposed is a length of approximately 75 feet, what length would we be happy with?
They have that up in that northern corner. It's the north part. You already have some grass growing already up there. And if there's some in the south, we'd need to know kind of.
If we said 40 feet or 45 feet or something, would
That's
that
the
be?
property owner. What would he be in?
Well, I'm wondering if we just, because it is just on that screened-in patio, and he's suggesting adding a gutter system, do we just require a gutter system on that patio or the screened-in porch area?
And not
Do the no-mow thing?
That'd be
That's an
fine with
option
me.
too.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Yep.
So if we require a gutter system, do they still need to put in a 125% deposit? No, okay. So I think we are still waiting for a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve their request for the replacement of the deck and addition of the screened-in porch with the condition that they include the gutter system on the lake side of the home with the rain barrels.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Ken?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes, so the variance has passed. So thank you very much, and you can speak with staff during business hours if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Madam Chair, just a note to Jamie, the next applicant is joining us virtually. So Deb has asked that you and I start our videos. Okay, thank you.
Okay, for agenda item number 5, to consider a request from Jeff Wegner of Hutchinson, Minnesota from sections 9.9.9A3 and 10.211A 1A of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to construct a residential accessory structure less than 50 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 8, classified as a minor collector, and less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of Pearl Lake, classified recreational development. Said ordinance requires accessory structures to be 50 feet from the right-of-way of a county road, classified as a minor collector, and 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of a lake, classified recreational development. Affected property, lots 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, Block 1, Pearl Beach, Section 10, T122N, R29W, Main Prairie Township, property address 9914, County Road 8, Kimball, Minnesota. All right, and I believe the applicant is on WebEx.
Correct.
Okay, so applicant, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lynn Newman, and this is my father, Jeff Wagner. We both reside in Hutchinson, Minnesota, but the property that we're speaking of is the Lake Home, property address 9914, County Road 8, Kimball, Minnesota.
Okay, I believe we need your home address, though, just for the record.
You want my dad's?
Sure.
So Jeff Wagner, 1035 Goebel Street, Southwest, Hutchinson, Minnesota, 55350.
Thank you. And then a site visit roll call from the board. Bonnie, were you able to visit?
Yes.
George?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
And I was not able to visit. Okay, thank you. And a staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicant currently owns lots 8 through 13, Block 1 of Pearl Beach in Main Prairie Township on Pearl Lake. Pearl Beach was platted in 1925. The tract contains 36,590 square feet in lot area per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 2021. There is an existing 771 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed in 1925 per the Stearns County Assessor's records prior to the official controls. There are 3 accessory structures that were constructed between 1960 and 1965. The first is a 351 square foot detached garage that was constructed in 1960. There is also a 211 square foot shed constructed in 1960 and a 245 square foot boathouse that was constructed in 1965. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling was permitted and constructed in 1978, and the system was certified compliant in 2021. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct and expand the existing 351 square foot detached garage that was damaged by the storm this past spring. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Pearl Lake, which is classified recreational development. Pearl is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish. The subsurface sewage treatment system is permitted and constructed in 1978. The system was certified compliant in 2021. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 4.3% per the survey provided. The proposed impervious lot coverage, if the project were completed, will be 4.9%. An alternative to the request would be to replace the existing detached garage to its existing dimensions without expansion. Main Prairie Township, Pearl Lake Association, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And we did receive one correspondence with regards to this request, and it came from Jody Tyke, the Stearns County engineer. It says, staff at the Highway Department has reviewed the request for the variance to construct a garage 39.6 feet from the center line of County Road 8. It is understood that the existing garage is only 42.3 feet from the roadway center line. This section of County Road 8 is a minor collector that currently has a 66-foot right-of-way, 33 feet each side of the center line. The latest traffic count shows an AADT of approximately 400 vehicles per day. When this road is reconstructed, it would be built with 12-foot lanes and 4-foot shoulders. The right-of-way would typically be increased to a minimum of 50 feet each side of the center line to comply with the required 37-foot clear zone for a roadway with the amount of traffic while still leaving room for utilities within the right-of-way. In this specific area, we'd already have to narrow the proposed right-of-way to 40 feet to avoid buying a structure. Further, the future reconstruction would likely require construction limits that extend to a minimum of 40 feet from the center line. Allowing permanent structures to be constructed even closer to the roadway than existing will necessitate shifting the road center line to the southeast, which would impact property owners on the opposite side of the road. In order to meet required design speeds, this shift cannot be accomplished in a short distance, but would need to start several hundred feet in either direction from the proposed garage site, so the impact would be not only on open field area, but also on two home sites. For the above reasons, the Highway Department recommends denying the requested variance. And again, that was from Jody Tyke, the Stearns County engineer. And that's all I have for correspondence.
Thank you. For the applicant, do you have anything you'd like to add on the record for this item, please?
I think the only thing we'd like to add is that unfortunately we weren't planning to replace the garage structure, but unfortunately when the storm hit in May of 2022, we were faced with having to completely reconstruct the garage because it was deemed totaled. And so when we decided to reconstruct it, we were hoping to gain an additional 10 feet going towards not so far the road and the lake, but going 10 feet the other way to hopefully maximize our use of that structure that we do have on site. That's right. Okay. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions from the members of the board?
I have a question for the applicant. Did you consider at all placing the garage on the other side of the house where it's the wider part of the lot?
We have not, no. I see my septic system's over there, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I think that's on that side of the lot.
All right. So
otherwise I would, but it would have to move the septic system, I believe.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public hearing. Would anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Would anyone in the audience like to speak? Would anyone in the audience like to speak? I'm open for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. We can move on to the finding of facts. So this variance requested is to construct a 24-foot residential accessory structure 3 feet from the right-of-way of County Road 8, classified as a minor collector, and 33 feet from the ordinary high water level of Pearl Lake, classified as recreational development. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located.
I would say yes, it's allowed in R1s.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls or any related ordinances. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I would say no. It's way too close to the right-of-way, in my opinion.
Okay, Ken?
Well, see, I have a question to ask first before. They're not going to be any closer to the road than they are now, are they?
It's about 1.5 feet, right?
Oh, my thought was they were going to.
Madam Chair, members of the board, looking at the survey.
There isn't a really good picture that shows how much closer I thought.
The existing structure is a sliver closer. The existing structure, I think, right now is 42.3 feet, and the proposed is 39.6.
See, my thought is if they left it on the same spot and just went wider, they wouldn't be infringing on.
Wouldn't be getting closer.
Wouldn't be getting any closer to the, and that's.
That was our intent, to not go any closer to the road, just to go out 10 feet towards the cabin structure.
But I would add the letter from the engineer clearly articulates that future, when you redo a road, you widen it, it would make it even worse. So since it was damaged and it has to be rebuilt, now is an opportunity to make it more in compliance.
I have a question for the applicant. Further to, on our pictures, further to the left or further away from the cabin, what is the shortest distance between the property line and the lake? Is that maybe 25 feet wide or?
Let's say.
From the existing structure?
No,
Yes.
if you looked over where the number 12 is on the picture.
Yep.
What would you estimate that distance to be?
I think it'd be narrower than what it is now, I believe.
But would you say that from your property, from the red line to the lake would be, 25 feet? Or what would you guess that to be?
I would say it's about 25 to 30 feet.
Okay. I guess my thought is, and I'm not the county engineer, I can't, determine what they're going to do, but if they'd be expanding that road, I can't imagine them going any closer to the lake than what the road currently is.
Well, if they would do that, the neighbor shed is just as close, not closer to the red line next door.
Next door.
It's right there too, so it's in the right of way, in the roadway as well.
I also want to note where it's currently located. That's the only access from the road to our property with a driveway. That's where the driveway comes in on the property.
Okay, so George is a no on that one. Ken?
I'm a yes.
Okay, Bonnie? Or go ahead, Ken, if you wanted to expand on
No,
the
I'm
yes.
just, if they build it the same, it's going to be a long time before they ever rebuild that road out there and make it wider, and they're not going to get any closer to the lake.
I'm going to say yes to, as long as we would stipulate that they can't go any closer than what they currently are, that they'd have to back off their proposal that little bit to meet. where they currently are.
Okay.
And I think kind of my other thought on that is if we're having a home on the lake, it is a normal expectation to maybe have a garage or a place to put your vehicle. And it'd be I'm not sure the legal status of this, but would be almost like a taking or we're taking away the use of their property if we don't allow them to have some type of structure there.
The big thing is they can rebuild the garage exactly as it is, and then it will still be closer to the road right away. So all we're telling them is you can't go 10 feet wider.
Right. So I will say yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think what you're trying to say is, well, I understand what you're saying. It is still increasing the nonconformity.
Right.
Okay, just so
Okay.
we're clear.
I'm going to say I'm a no, that it's not fitting with the general purposes and intent because they are currently 3 feet from the right-of-way and, or they're requesting to be 3 feet from the right-of-way and the ordinance requires 50 feet. So 3 versus 50 is a huge difference. From the county attorney's letter, they are getting closer to the center line. I'm moving from 39.6 to 42.3 feet. So they are moving closer to the center line even more. So I'm going to say that no, it's not in harmony. And because it's a tie, there's 2 no's and 2 yeses. I believe that means it's a no.
Correct.
So number 2 is a no. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
And I'm just not finding it in my packet where you referred to a letter from the county attorney.
I think she meant the engineer, didn't you?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the engineer.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I was just saying.
Did I
okay,
say the
saw,
wrong name?
You said the county attorney, and I thought.
I apologize.
Thought I was missing something out of my pack. Okay, thank you.
Yep, county engineer. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on number 3. The variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no? I'm going to say no. Under connectivity goals, number 1, develop and maintain a transportation system that promotes the safety, mobility, and access of all users, just because it is encroaching upon the right-of-way of that road. So I'm going to say no. George.
No.
Ken.
I'm still going to say yes because from where it is, so you're saying next year if a tree falls on the house and that's too close, we have to, you can't rebuild that, so, or one of the other sheds. So pretty soon everything's gone on their property because I agree. Years ago they built the roads too close to the lakes. We have a cabin right across from there. From the water to our cabin is 43 feet. On the other side of the cabin, there's only another 50 feet and we're on the road. So these things are, I'm just going to say yes.
Do you have an item on the comprehensive plan that coordinates with that answer?
No, because I can't find anything that's kind of designates putting any kind of garages or outbuildings or whatever into these areas.
Well, I'll agree with that, yes, and put living goal number 3 to support housing options.
Okay.
That's about as close as a person can get.
Yes.
So we've got 2 yeses and 2 nos, which is a tie, so that does mean that it's a no. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no? I'm going to say yes, it's perfectly reasonable to want to rebuild a garage and make it larger on your residential property. I think that is a reasonable use, so I'm going to say yes. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
So that's a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
And before I answer that one, I have a question for staff. Let's say they were to replace it with what exactly is there right now. Over on that other side of the property, that other side of the cabin, would there be setbacks anywhere there that they could put like a storage shed or anything in there?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the structure would need to be 10 feet from property lines. We don't have an actual setback from a septic system, so technically they could go right up to it. They just cannot cover their existing septic system. They still would have the 100-foot lake setback and the 50 feet from the road right-of-way. So it's going to require a variance.
Okay, so they probably couldn't do it without a variance.
Not without a variance, correct.
All right, thank you.
So the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Well, I'm going to say yes, just because of the layout of this lot. It's pretty unique.
Okay. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no? I'm going to say yes, it maintains this essential character. They're replacing a garage with another garage. It should not be changing the character. George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I'd say yes. I don't think economics were the primary factor here.
George?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. All right, so we have 5 yeses and 2 nos, which indicates we would deny. Open for a movement. All right, I move to deny the variance request to construct a 24-foot residential accessory structure 3 feet from the right-of-way and 33 feet from the OHWL.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ken?
No.
Bonnie?
No.
So how does that work if it's a tie for a no?
Then
So
it's a denial.
But it's a tie to deny the denial.
No.
So the denial does not pass?
Madam Chair, so because you had several findings that were in the negative,
Right.
your motion to deny is appropriate. And so, what is your question?
Oh, I see your question, because if we have a tie and it's
negatives.
two negatives, so if it's a no, then the motion fails. but the motion was to deny.
Right.
So then we could make a similar motion to pass,
Right.
and then if it comes out 2 noes, it's denied.
Your result is going to be the same, but go ahead and do what Bonnie suggested
It's
if you'd like.
for legal stance, it's probably the best way to do it.
Yep.
So since that motion failed, I'll make a motion in the opposite, and then if there's 2 noes, it fails.
So do we need a motion that passes?
No.
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 Tonight.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the request.
And I'll second that.
And I'll say no.
No.
So now it's denied.
So the motion is denied, so the variance requested is denied.
So a question for staff, now that we've denied this, they can rebuild at the same location. Even though it's a rebuild, they don't have to follow what the ordinance says?
Madam Chair, members, so there's a state law that was passed in early 2000s and then amended a couple years later that allows you to build legal non-conforming structures as is, where is. So as long as it was existing prior to 1972, which it was, they are allowed to rebuild it. It has to be the exact same height, size, roof pitch. We do allow for change of window and door locations, but that's about it.
And they have to do it within like 12 months, right? Or is it 2 years
They
now?
have to do it within 60 days, or 6 months, I believe, they have to apply for a permit within. That's in the statute, and they do need a permit. So if they do want to, I know they're on the line, so if they're suggesting that, yeah, it would be the six months from May.
And then they have a year after they get
Start.
the permit to start it. So they would really have a year and a half to start it, but they have to get the permit within 6 months.
I believe so, but they should call and confirm.
Confirm
and
that.
bring up this, we'd have to bring up the statute, double check.
Okay, so to the
Structure
applicant.
is still there and standing. So it
Yes.
hasn't been removed yet,
Oh.
technically.
Still there.
It's still there.
Standing, it's just leaning a little bit.
Got it.
Yep.
A little bit.
Leaning a lot of it.
Yeah.
Kind of dangerous.
But my point is, I don't think that 60-day time period has started yet, or 6
Whatever.
6 months.
Oh,
Until you
Because the
remove it.
structure's still there. Now, had they removed it, then we would have to start that clock. But because it's still standing, and I don't know if they're using it or not, but because the garage was closed when I was there, but it's still there, so that time period has not started for them yet.
Okay. So then for the applicants, I would recommend that you contact staff during working hours if you have any questions on your application. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So then, agenda item number 6, the minutes from July 28th. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Or is there a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right. And then the minutes from August 25th, any corrections, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then agenda item number 7, the next meeting is October 27th, 2022. Any other items that we wanted to talk about today? Anything else?
I just think right now, Angie thought like 4 or 5 for next month, possibly. The
Okay.
deadline is Monday, so some more could come in yet, but that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. All right. So I think
Can't we ever have like 2 when that? Have you ever had 2?
we are open for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you very much.